Welcome to IT Nation Wise Up, the podcast that skips the sales pitch and gets right to information that can help the MSP community to grow and prosper. My name is Vicki Bruns, and I am joined here with my ever-amazing co-host, Matt Tapper.
Hey, Vicki.
Hey, how you doing, Matt?
We're hanging in there.
We're hanging in there, and we are at IT Nation Connect.
IT Nation Connect live on site.
On site, yes. And we are in the IT Nation studio, which is a pretty impressive looking studio with an impressive screen. And we're joined by Monica.
Hello.
Hey, Monica, how are you doing?
Good, good. I feel like a little better.
And the reason why you're joining us, Monica, is we're here to say, hey, what are some really great pieces of advice that if you're at the show, you're hearing things, you're seeing things, what can we do, and what is your advice to help the MSP community? But before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been looking at everyone's badges to see who's from Canada, which has been very exciting. I'm Monica Ozaruk. I'm from Toronto, Canada originally, living in Austin, Texas. And unlike 98% of everyone here, I did not come from an MSP, so I have a little bit of a different background.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So we're going to be talking about procurement, spoiler alert, and my background's primarily in procurement. So I did my undergrad in supply chain procurement, and I worked at Whirlpool and Dyson in Canada doing procurement-based roles.
Okay, and Matt, coming from MSP world, did you ever deal in procurement at all?
Not if I could avoid it.
And why is that?
So whenever I dealt with procurement, it's because the wrong thing somehow ended up getting ordered. There was some kind of delay. There was some kind of issue, like just so many problems like that. And it's always a hassle. I wanted to be helping clients. And anytime I had to deal with this kind of thing, it was just time taken away from doing that.
All right, I think that actually leads into maybe some of the advice that Monica has for us. So, Monica, can you tell us a little bit about some of the themes that you've been seeing at the event so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see these pain points, and number one is operational efficiency. And what you're talking about is that back office impacting your service delivery. So you promise things to your client, you want to deliver to your client, you do everything right. You hit all the SLAs, all the metrics, everything that's been in place. And that last, little bit falls apart because you're delivering the wrong product, you're upsetting the client, and everyone looks like they have egg on their face. And I think that's a huge challenge with procurement.
So specifically, the things that I used to see frequently were the wrong thing got ordered. I put a part number in. Somebody thought they were trying to do me a favor and got the discounted version. They called up the distributor and said there was a substitute, but didn't check with engineering first, and now it's not the right thing. How do you avoid that happening?
And that really comes down to SKU standardization, which sounds like it's very complicated, but there has to be an agreement between sales, marketing, engineering, techs, everyone, of what products you're going to support. And having a list of those products, having your product catalog be really well maintained, and make sure you have a short list that everyone's comfortable with. The benefit of that, and not ad hoc buying and buying just whatever's on sale, is that you can start to forecast and you can say, these are the products we commit to carrying. And you can start working with your vendors and suppliers to get discounts on those in a more long-term fashion, a more proactive fashion, versus just buying and breaking customer promises.
Fantastic.
So what you're talking about is standardization leads to operational efficiency. And how does a good procurement strategy help your personnel? How does it help the overall business? What's the impact?
I think that there's a cultural impact to procurement, honestly. I think that there's usually a very small number of people in the organization who are working in procurement roles.
Yes.
Sometimes those roles are really isolating. They don't know what their metrics are. There isn't a lot of training available for those people. And so they're feeling swamped. They're not communicating back to you that they've made a switch. They're not giving those updates, and they're not going above and beyond and finding cost savings, and they're not finding ways to make your business better. So let's find those easy ways to make procurement, which should should not be a difficult job, by the way. It's actually a very easy job if you get it right. We should make those really automated. We leverage the ConnectWise PSA system and all the different screens and things that they've brought out. The product pick and ship screen's really helpful for that too. And then we make that easier for everyone.
Yeah, so I could just spend this entire interview talking about things that went wrong in the procurement world. So how about this one? Hey, procurement person, when is this part coming in? Oh, turned out it's been here for 4 days. No, didn't tell anyone. How do you avoid that happening?
I think that's the most common complaint that I see. And the first thing that irks me is that you should email them in the first place, that you should have to ask them, because ConnectWise PSA has the PO info column available in multiple places within the software where you can actually see the purchase order status and the product status right in your service ticket. It's almost the first thing I do with any of my clients is put in that PO info screen. No one leverages it, but you'll be able to see right away that your product's actually been received.
Nice.
See, so it's actually doubling down and figuring out how to leverage like the functionality that ConnectWise PSA can provide and the procurement module can provide, which is super compelling. All right. Well, so Monica, what are you looking forward to most of the show?
I think just connecting with everyone, it's really exciting to meet other people who are maybe have the same frustrations. One thing I do love doing is taking the procurement module and making it work. So I come from a warehouse management background, a bit more of an ERP background. I've taken those best practices and built some things into the PSA to make it work better for my clients. And I love hearing how other people have created workarounds or what they're doing or the little tips and tricks that they have. So that's my favorite part of the conference.
It's all about the network effect and finding those people that can give you those tips, right? Well, thanks for joining us, Monica. We
Absolutely.
appreciate
Thank you.
you and have fun at the rest of the show.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Ashley Cooper, who
Hello.
I've known for a long time from the AVIC network days. But there's a history here at IT Nation Connect, and I believe you're celebrating a milestone today.
Yeah, it's like 15 years or something.
Really?
15 years. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
15 years at IT Nation Connect. What have you seen change the most?
Actually, it's funny. I was just commenting to somebody else. Over the past few years, I've seen a lot of changes, and this year specifically, I've seen a lot of familiar faces, and it's almost like we're coming a little bit full circle. Like people, like saw some needs, and like maybe went off and did some stuff on their own, and now they're coming back around and they're here again, and it's really interesting to see. Speaking about Canada. But I would say that the shift that I would almost want to talk about is what hasn't changed.
Ooh,
Which
hasn't changed?
Which is like that sense of community that you guys have always been able to like establish. And even though the venues have changed 3 times since I've been here, and some faces have changed what badges they're wearing, I still see them, all over the place. Like, we are a very close-knit group who want to stick in around, and we find passion in everything. So I think that that's something that's static to IT Nation, and I love it.
There was a really interesting post that you put out on LinkedIn of I think it was last week, about your experience leading into IT Nation Connect. You started out as doing what?
Yeah, I started as I was like cold call recruited by a company in Canada called Xylotech Solutions, and they ended up being an MSP. I'd never heard of an MSP. They wanted me to come and do some tech support work for them, but I didn't have a car, so they were like, okay, well, be our dispatcher instead. So I did that, and then they were just bringing on ConnectWise, so it was like, oh, also be the admin of this tool. And so I'm a very big community-minded person. Like, it's a part of my culture. Like, even before, like every job I've been in, I've looked for communities of like-minded people.
Yeah.
And so I found the IT Nation Share events. I bullied my boss into bringing me, even though I was on mat leave. And I guess, yeah, it skyrocketed from there. Like, that event was the catalyst of my career, probably.
I think, Matt, you know something about community. You just touched on that.
So,
I
Ash,
want to dox you.
you've already done that, as has Ray. So I'm big on community, of course, right? So I started the MSP subreddit, and I always say I wouldn't have done that had I known I would work for a vendor one day. Excuse me. As you can see, I'm basically dying during the podcast interview. Um, Ashley, what has it been like? What I find interesting is that the various communities have different personalities, right? Reddit has a different personality than Geek than anything else. Um, what do you find that's different about them, or how do you think that happened, or why did we all like gravitate towards specific communities?
Because people are different.
Yeah.
They have different needs. They have different wants. Actually, we were interviewing for. I'm a member of the MSP Geek board, and we were interviewing for new board members. And like one of the best answers that we heard when we were asking, like, who is this for? And it's like it's for whoever's looking for it, right? And it's like this is the group that is here to not like there is a lot of selfish motivation when you come into a new community. Like you're not there to like altruistically help out other people. You get to that point, right? And so everybody goes somewhere for a purpose, and whether it's evolve or thought leadership or business strategy, or whether it's hey, I'm a product adoption person and I really need help understanding how to maximize this to 110%, which me, hi. And like that's why like so like the biggest piece of advice probably on that is like for everybody else, recognize that like it's not one size fits all. It's not like my community is better than this one, or like I'm a member of all of them because I'm a community person, but like I value going to user groups because I can see other people's inspiration and I can see what they've done, and I'm reminded myself that my ideas are actually insightful and I should share them, because even though I got inspiration from somebody else might get inspiration from me. And regardless of whether it's technical or business, that's really the purpose. And the different personas, or sorry, Tony, the different places, spaces, and faces that we look for are really driven by that, right?
Yeah, so there are a lot of first timers here at this event, which is amazing to me. A lot of people that have been part of maybe the ConnectWise ecosystem in some way or fashion, but this is actually the first event that they've come to. What is one piece of advice that you would give to newcomers at IT Nation Connect to make the most of it?
I think I might, recognizing that everybody's different, I might have two answers here. For the business leaders in the crowd, I would say recognize the power of advocacy amongst your techs. Figure out what they're interested in. Find what the vendors are that you're using. Find the sessions that will really like inspire people like them. Go watch them. Go see those things and figure out how you can foster that culture of like that creativity and that inspiration, because that's when you get the most ingenious experiences. Monica was just sitting here talking about the procurement, talking about those struggles, and it's like you can't understand why it's important to put a number in a PO field if you don't understand why it's important to the person downstream or upstream. And so thinking across the board as a business leader, recognizing who on your team is asking those other questions, and instead of harshing that vibe, like foster it, right? And so then on the other side, on the technical people, or on the people who are getting started and they're just finding that passion, or they're like, I really love playing with this tool, go talk to others who have done that. Go listen to actual product demonstrations and ask them how they've got their leaders on board. There's a lot of managing up that you have to do in a role like that if your leadership doesn't have that culture naturally, and it's really easy to prove. Just show them what comes of it, right? And yeah, so it's that integration between the two. How can leaders take their business requirements and help translate that down into the application functionality for their teams? And then how can those technical product admins articulate that application functionality into how it helps the business? That would be, go find those answers. That'd be my advice.
Excuse me. Go ahead, Vicky.
All right. Well, I think that's a great answer, and I know that there's the Traveler's Journal that came out, I think in an IT Nation Secure maybe.
Yes.
But it was exactly what you were just talking about, Ashley, of actually taking all of the input and the things that you see and you hear in the community, and at these events, and then actually creating tangible actions from it that you can report back out to your team, delegate, and then kind of create a work plan around that. So that was great advice. Now, what are you most looking forward to?
Stone Temple Pilots.
Stone Temple Pilots.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ashley. We appreciate you and everything that you do for the community. And thank you to Goots as well. Cheers, Goots.
Thanks, Adam. So we're not actually sure what Kelvin's last name is.
You can try to pronounce it.
No, I can't.
Oh, you can try.
So we're joined today
It starts
by...
with a C.
Come on, come on.
Kelvin, and then like last name with more digits than pi.
Kelvin Tegelaar. Come on, it's not that hard. It just has a very good one.
Tegelaar.
Yeah, no, let's not try again. Let's not try again.
So Kelvin, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of IT
Yeah.
Nation Wise Up. We're here at IT Nation Connect, and I feel like we just saw you recently. Weren't you on the stage at IT Nation Connect last year?
Yeah. Last year I was introducing Microsoft when they were announcing their Defender MDR. I am a Microsoft MVP, and because of that, I'm very involved with everything that Microsoft does, and so I got a chance to go on stage and introduce. I think it was David Beer that did the presentation on M365 Defender.
Yes, yeah, that was really cool. So, can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, your background in the MSP space?
So I am an MSP owner, co-owner. I have two wonderful partners who decided to stay back in the Netherlands to keep the business running, so I can go out and gallivant.
Need that.
So we're a fairly large MSP, and we've been growing very rapidly over the last years. So it's so much fun. It's so much fun being an MSP owner, and I'm very involved in the tech community. Next to my MSP, I also have a SaaS company called CyberDrain, which created a open source M365 multi-tenant management tool. Now try saying that 10 times and you'll definitely fall over.
So, how did you? I guess so. It sounds like you've got the vendor side of the business, and then you're running an MSP. So, how did you become a Microsoft MVP? I'm really curious to hear how this.
Being very involved in the
happened.
MSP community.
Yeah.
Together with Topper, Ash, and some others, we run the Reddit MSP. I am also a board member on MSP Geek. I have my own CyberDrain community. So it's being very involved in the MSP community in general, and surrounding yourself by people who are willing to grow. And that is really, in essence, you become an MVP simply by constantly giving. And then that's a wonderful experience for yourself because it just feels good to give things.
And it's more than just being the best technical mind in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't even have to be technically extremely strong. It's not like you have to be an extreme nerd locking yourself in the basement and coding for weeks. It's actually like getting involved with the people around you and helping lift them up. I mean, of all the people I've helped, I'm pretty sure that 99.9% was smarter than me in some sense.
So the power of community is that even if you come from a technical background, you're almost giving yourself a leg up if you're able to connect within your community to grow, right? You can't just learn it all on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the entire idea about having a community around you. Ash was just mentioning how for who a community is, and you can actually say a community is there for me, and it sounds a little bit selfish. It sounds a little bit selfish because you're thinking like it might be. The community should be there for everyone, but you are an important part of that. And if you can say the community is there for me, you automatically start giving yourself more because it is there as a part of you.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to the MSPs that are out here, right? That are the thousands that are here at the event. They're coming to the show. What's your take?
I guess my advice would be to listen to everyone. I have had the luck that my MSP has grown very rapidly and we've grown bigger and bigger. And because of that, I found that myself and my partners were always looking ahead at everyone who was ahead of us. We were looking at monster MSPs and like mergers and acquisitions of 250 new employees and these kind of things. And we were like, wait a minute, let's also make sure that we keep looking back. And I actually had a couple of conversations, one with a good friend of mine that was all about how he is running his MSP, and he's a solo shop. And he actually taught me so much. He was explaining to me about how to manage a catastrophic client loss and what better approaches you could do than what most MSPs do. And I was like actively listening to him, and I was like, this is fantastic advice for an MSP of any size. So I think my biggest piece is listen to everyone. Don't just focus on, oh, hey, there are bigger MSPs than me here and I should learn from them. You can learn from every single person that is at this event.
That's a good point. What's your thought, Matt?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just like
He is
wiped out.
He is so
Well, so that's a good point of that. No matter what size and maybe mode or phase that your business is in, it's always important to kind of look around you and understand that there are different sizes, right, and different focuses for each MSP owner, right, in each business. And it's interesting because this year at IT Nation Secure, there was a Microsoft keynote, and Kevin Blake, who's an MSP owner, if you've met Kevin Blake before, if you haven't, you got to meet him. He came to IT Nation Connect, and it was over a decade ago, and he had 3 employees at that time, and he's been able to grow to over 300 employees in his business, and so anything is really applicable, right? Like no matter what size you are, where you are today is not where you will potentially be 10 years from now, right? As long as you have the right goals in place. And
absolutely. Every single MSP owner here is an entrepreneur. And I guess a lot of people forget that when it's a solo shop or a small shop. People tend to go like, yeah, but you're smaller than me, so what am I going to learn? And I am quite honest to say that if you have that mentality, you can learn everything from them.
So what's your thing that you're looking forward to most at the conference?
I want to say like, oh, these really cool tech sessions and all of this kind of stuff, but I'm really looking forward to Universal.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because there was a session earlier, over 100 people were in at one of those smaller breakout rooms, but it was all about having compassion and understanding and being able to work through like critical moments in your business and how you can, I guess, be able to resolve conflicts and create better resolution strategies. So to your point, it wasn't technical at all, but it was something that speaks to MSPs and the firefighting that they probably do all day, every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thanks for joining us, Kelvin. We appreciate having you on the show. Hope you have a great rest of the conference, and we'll see you back here soon, maybe.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks,
Great.
Kelvin.
So we are joined by Eddie Phillips from ThreatDown, powered by Malwarebytes. See, I remembered. How you doing, Eddie?
I am doing fantastic, Vicky. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And I'm a little biased because I know Eddie pretty well. We've done a live stream together very recently for ConnectWise. And I have to say, I know that you are a cybersecurity evangelist and advocate within the MSP community. But then you're also a fellow equine enthusiast.
I am. In fact, it's funny how many times that, Vicky, you and I get into discussion and it ends up, veering off into equine, health issues or the amount we should be riding, right?
Yeah. I wonder if any of that could be applicable to the cybersecurity world, maybe like preparation of making sure you're...
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think we could spend a whole episode on that. But I think there's some really great parallels, right? Like you're never going to be perfect at, horseback riding. You're never going to be perfect at security. So I think it's an ongoing journey. How's that off the top of my head?
I think that was wonderful. That was a great tie-in. So I have to ask, what have you been up to at IT Nation Connect?
Oh, so we are a non-exhibiting sponsor this year, which I thought that we take a bit of a different approach. We've spent a lot of time speaking with MSPs as they're moving from vendor to vendor. A lot of time speaking to some of our partners. I like the approach. I know as much as I love being at a booth, but it's a little more dynamic when we can circulate amongst the crowd.
Yeah, and you also, before going into the vendor world, you have the MSP experience too, right?
Right. In fact, I originally started my career on the enterprise side, and then I started up an MSP in 2008, and then I ran 2 successful MSPs for 14 years, sold them in 2022, had no idea I was going to be joining the dark side, the vendor side. And here I am and enjoying every minute of it. It gives me a platform where I can actually go out and help MSPs. It's really, to me, it's less about product and more about evangelizing.
So what do you think has shifted in the industry since you were an MSP? I know it's only been 2 years, but what would you say are some of the things that MSPs should be really paying attention to at this moment?
I think it's, I talk a lot about the evolution of vendors, whereas, 12, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago, we didn't see the level of really consulting and education and the evolution of vendors and solution providers like ConnectWise and the added value that they can bring to help MSPs grow. Whereas prior to even a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, it was a very very transactional relationship. Whereas today it's very much a relationship.
It's almost like you're not just solving for a widget anymore. It's what is the value, the additional value, the key differentiator, right, that you can bring to your business?
Well, yeah, 100%. It's so complex today, right, that you have to have help. There's no way that even a medium-sized MSP, much less a smaller MSP, can keep up with just the changes that happen. Just things like a pandemic happens and there's a big shift in the way that we do business. MSPs need that help.
What would be, I guess, one of the pieces of coming to a conference? What's a valid reason why MSPs should be showing up and engaging at these types of events?
Oh yeah, you can't do it on your own. Being able to come to a conference like this and sit next to an MSP that might be going through similar struggles, or even better, an MSP who's overcome the same struggles that you are. Sitting in a conference, going and networking and going to dinner or hanging out in an area like this where, you get that opportunity to interact and you get that opportunity to, ask the questions that you might be struggling with. So I think the camaraderie is amazing in the MSP family. It does really feel like a family. A lot of the MSPs that show up here might be in competing geographic areas, but they'll still share. They'll still help each other out, right? And then, this particular conference, right, we saw yesterday, just before the keynote, how many countries come to, IT Nation. And so it's wonderful to see, the collaboration.
That's the thing that's the most, I guess, shocking to me in a great way, is that we do have localized events in EMEA and also in, Asia Pacific, but people still choose to come to this conference in Orlando, Florida, and make the flights because of what you're mentioning, right? And I'm interested to hear your take too. How do you think that the impact of how the MSP industry has matured over the last 2 decades, what do you think that means for the future of our industry?
I think I'd like to actually jump back to what you said about the different the countries that are coming here.
Yeah.
I think I can appreciate that. So before I started working for ThreatDown, I didn't do a whole lot of traveling. My MSP was localized in Canada and the northern U.S. And now that I've had a chance to travel, I do see how much further ahead the U.S. is from an MSP maturity perspective. So I think that's a lot of the reason that maybe some of those other vendors, MSPs travel.
That's a good
from other
take.
countries.
That's a good take.
I think
Okay.
so. And your other question, around the maturity.
Yeah.
And so I think with we see so many vendors and we see so many partners out there who are investing in delivering value without necessarily looking for anything in return, right? I've always believed as now that I've been on the vendor side that if you show the value, the customers will eventually come. But this freely offered information, this freely offered consulting on how to move forward has helped MSPs mature to the point where I think we can be really optimistic about where MSPs are going to land, not only in growth but certainly in security and the ability to begin to make sure they're servicing the needs of their clients.
That's great advice. And I wanted to ask, I know you've been part of the MSP industry for a while. What are you looking forward to most at this event this week?
This is it, Vicki. I'm sitting here, right? This was the pinnacle of my visit to IT Nation.
Stop it. I love it. We'll take that as a great answer. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this special episode on site at an amazing event. As we're looking around the room, there's a sea of people coming and going, getting ready for their next breakout sessions. So we appreciate you, Eddie.
Thank you so much, Vicki. It was my pleasure.
For our next guest, we have Joe Lamb joining us from, we just talked off stage about Evolve and all the other amazing communities that you've been a part of.
I've been involved in lots of things.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that, Joe. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, grew up in Atlanta, built a MSP in the 90s through 2018, sold it in 2018, ran a national MSP out of Austin for a few years, and then made it back to Atlanta to start Redvine Operations, which is my current venture. And I spend a lot of time in the Evolve community, so facilitating Evolve groups and being a part of this community is really the highlight of my year.
All right. Well, so tell us a little bit about your start in the space, because I know I've mentioned earlier on the show that we've got a lot of MSPs here. This is their first time. This is their first, maybe even their first conference in the IT channel, the MSP channel.
Yeah, I started early in the 90s. There was really not a lot of tools available for what we do. And we had to be very innovative, and we built a lot of our own tools. And believe it or not, we built our own PSA and ran it for several years before ConnectWise started. And then at some point, we had to make a decision. ConnectWise had, far surpassed our development abilities and was doing great work. And so we looked at the product and said, I think we need to make a switch. And we did that. And I think that was really the juncture where we just skyrocketed in growth. And I don't attribute all of it to ConnectWise, but it certainly helped.
That's so interesting. So I have to ask then, if you adopted ConnectWise PSA in the early days,
Early.
did Arnie Bellini do your installation?
He did, yes.
We always talk about how we needed a button.
Yes, his name was everywhere.
Yeah, that said Arnie did my installation.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot of change through the years.
Sure.
as the industry has grown. What's your take on where we are now?
Well, I think it's very exciting, for one. What's changing is the acceleration of growth in the tools. One of the things I love the most about coming to this show every year is, aside from seeing friends that I've grown to know and love, is visiting all the solution partner booths in the expo and being able to talk to them and see how their products are changing, how things like AI are affecting the way that we do business, the way that we write products, the way that we go to market. I'm really excited about a new generation of people that are coming in that are starting MSPs because they're younger and they have different ideas about how to do things, and they're being very innovative, and I find that very exciting. Very exciting. And being an Evolve facilitator is great because I get the ability to sit with the new ones that come in that have smaller, MSPs, and they quickly grow and adapt, and they take the good things from the old guard that are getting older and starting to sell their MSPs, and they're taking the good things and adding it to their innovative minds and the way that they do things, and it's creating pretty dynamic managed service providers. So I'm pretty excited about it.
You have a really unique perspective too, I think, in that you not only have you been a member of the MSP channel even before the name MSP was a thing, but you work directly with a lot of other MSPs that are looking to accomplish their goals, right? Or MSP owners at Evolve. And I guess my question would be like, what are some of the topics that are really relevant right now that you're helping them to solve for?
Well, I don't know that the problems change a whole lot. They just become a little different in the way that people
The
address
tech
them.
stack changes a little bit, but the problems are the same.
Yeah, the problems are the same. For most MSPs, your owners are technicians that became owners. So they've had to learn through the years how to be business owners, how to manage their business. I was at an Evolve breakfast this morning, and I talked about how I feel like Evolve has given me a master's in business education through all that I've learned from it. And then I actually took advantage of the time during COVID and went back and got my MBA and was shocked that half the things they taught me in my MBA, I'd already learned at Evolve. So it's true. There's a lot of education that's going on and helping business owners to be very, very good, business leaders. So that's really important. But I think the biggest, issue that I see is around sales and marketing. Everybody's always struggling with sales and marketing. How do we do this, right? And it's because the owners aren't from a sales background. They generally don't have that skill set. They think in very technical terms, and they are challenged by it every day. How do I build and grow my business? Most of them live by referrals, so they do those referrals. I call it the Rolodex network, right? They
Yep.
continue to land business based on what they have done in the past, people they know. But there's a point in the industry or in the size of their business as it grows that runs out. And they say, I can't grow at the speed that I want to anymore with the Rolodex network or the referral network. So they have to do something else, and they end up looking for that one solution that's going to provide them the sales engine that will give them predictable growth.
What is your advice to these MSPs on when they say, "Hey, I just go by word of mouth"? What are some of the recommendations that you make of how to initially grow beyond that? Is it events, educational, webinars, emails?
Well, you asked about the changes in the industry, and I think one of the biggest changes we're dealing with now is our customers are different, right? Because just like in the MSP space, your MSP owners are growing older and they're getting out of the business. Well, our clients that we've been selling to for 20, 30 years are also getting older and out of the business, and there's younger people that are coming in and taking over. Well, those younger people don't buy in the same way, right? They go about obtaining information differently than we did, right? So growing up in the industry, if I wanted to know about a product, the first thing I would do is hit the website, see what information's there, but then reach out to sales and have somebody call me, give me a demo, show me how the product works, and then they would call me until I get tired of taking those calls, and I would finally buy, right?
I may have been one of those salespeople 10 years ago.
Right?
So,
It's
yeah.
not like that anymore, though. That's changing because the people you're calling on now don't want to talk to you. They want to get all of their information and make their decision before they ever talk to a salesperson. And in fact, they like to bypass the salesperson altogether and go directly to the buying once they've made a decision. But if your website doesn't have enough information, or you're not posting videos to YouTube and educating them on what you do to become that thought leader in the space, they're not going to have the attention for it. And they go to the next person who may provide them more free content and provide them a solution. So it's just very dynamic that our customers changing, and we have to learn to change with it.
So do you find yourself, is it a conversation, is it a different type of conversation maybe depending on the MSP? Or, because it sounds like you mentioned in Evolve there's a new generation that's coming in, right, that may kind of mirror what the buyer looks like as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I guess it probably varies depending on the client, right? But yeah, what are some of the key differences that you're seeing, like in both different demographics of the MSP owner?
You mean in the owners of the MSP?
Yes, yeah. Because it sounds like if these are MSPs that were maybe born in the cloud, right? They're already operating on slimmer margins because that's where they started. They may already know about technologies, right? But how are you helping them to harness that versus maybe taking a little bit longer, right? And educating maybe somebody who's been in the industry a little bit longer and saying, hey, you know what? let's first start with, what does your target persona look like, right?
Well, us old guys know a few things still. They're very good. They have a lot of energy, but they do things differently, and they're great with the tech. So the tech is advancing significantly, but us old school folks understand that it's all about relationships. That sales is about connecting with people and genuinely caring about them and their families and being a part of their experience. So I think the biggest struggle they have is the younger folks. They don't spend enough time nurturing leads. They don't spend enough time nurturing those relationships to get to a point where the buyer will say yes. I called them, right? Like we have clients that tell us that all the time. Well, I called that one, and I'm like, well, did you call them again? Right? No, I called them the first time. Did they say they were interested? No, they said call me back. Did you call them back? No. So that's something they have to learn, to build relationships, because they come from this world, right, where they text and that's their world. And I think sales is different than that. I really think it is. My dad told me growing up, business is about people. It's not about business or the solution you provide. It's about people, and people connect with one another. They'll do business with you the rest of your life, no matter where you work.
Right.
So it's about just building that trust, and I think that's where I can help. Evolve helps significantly, right? Try to train that into them, teach that in them. There's several solution providers here that do a fantastic job of talking about the sales process and how you're going to market and how you're nurturing those leads for them so that they can be successful.
That's a great revelation, actually, because you're right. The attention span of maybe a millennial or a Gen Z is probably a little bit shorter sometimes, and it's the reminder of, hey, this isn't done yet. You need to circle back, right, and maybe dig in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, keep at it.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask, how many IT Nation Connects have you attended?
I think I've lost count, but this feels like 9 or 10.
Okay, I was just talking.
It's been a while.
I was just talking to Dan Wensley, who is in the vendor space, and he was telling me this is his 20th IT Nation Connect, which this is, I think, 20 years, right?
Yeah, this is the anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really cool to see kind of the people that have been with IT Nation from the start to now. What are you most looking forward to at this event this year? I think you're already doing it.
Good question. Good question. I look forward to a lot of things. Meeting with the solution providers that I see every year and that I spend so much time with. Just trying to make folks successful, being a go-giver as the Evolve community teaches us to do and encourages us to do. I love seeing the new MSP owners, the ones that say, this is my first year. I'm like, you got to be kidding. Where have you been? Right? We've been around a long time, but they're showing up. A lot of new ones. And there was a fear, I think, for a little while that private equity was going to come in, consolidate all these MSPs, and we'd end up with like 12 right across the country. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't believe that's going to happen at all with all the young talent that we see now that are, they're jumping in. They're starting new MSPs with very innovative ideas about how to do things.
What would be, I guess, your one piece of advice? I know it's hard to limit it, right? Especially
hard to get down to one, right?
Yeah. But what would be like your one tangible takeaway for somebody who's maybe here at the conference this week?
Meet everybody you possibly can. Don't be afraid to shake hands with people and say hello. It's a very open community. I've been in several different communities that are not nearly this way. I don't think Microsoft conferences are this way. I don't think VMware is this way. They're great conferences. They're full of great content, but this is the only conference of the year where I feel like you can just walk right up to a table and sit down and say, hey, where are you from? What do you do? Let's strike up a conversation. And everybody's very inviting that way, right? It feels like family to me. Maybe that's just because I've been coming for so long, but it certainly does. It feels very inviting and feels like people aren't afraid to share who they are, or what they do. And in Evolve, it even goes another step. People are more than willing to share their experiences and even share their tools and how they're doing things. And there's no fear that there's a secret sauce, right, to the MSP world, right? We're all in it together. There's plenty of business for all of us. And we just want everybody to be successful.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do at ConnectWise is I help to manage some of the vendor partnerships. And I was in a session yesterday with Microsoft, and Erwin Visser, who is the head of the North America CSP programs, he mentioned that the SMB white space opportunity is so much bigger than it is for the enterprise space. And to your point, if the enterprise size vendors see it, like Microsoft, then to your point, like there's a lot of opportunity that
Without a doubt.
we can all take on together.
Without a doubt. Yeah, the small business is the largest contingent of businesses in the United States, right? There's plenty of business, and it's changed quite a bit over the years. I remember back in the 90s, you had to tell people what a managed service was. You had to convince them to outsource. It's not like that anymore. You now just have to convince them that you're better than the next MSP that comes in behind you. So we teach that a lot in Evolve, having unique differentiators, things that make you stand out from your competitor, and never, ever quit being innovative, right? Be innovative, be different, try to find a way to set yourself apart from those that are around you, because in some markets, it's very saturated. I'm in the Atlanta market. There's probably 10,000 MSPs.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's actually incredibly, saturated. And I remember every time we would do a bid, there would be like 5 or 6 after it that you'd have to compete with. So you'd have to find very creative ways to be innovative and stand out, right, from the crowd, so that you can win that business.
Yeah, that's really neat. Well, Joe, thanks for joining us on the broadcast today. And
Thanks for having me.
I wish you the best of luck with all the stuff that you're doing, all the amazing facilitation that you're doing at IT Nation Evolve, as well as being a member of this community and running a business, and just have a few things on your plate.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.